And welcome into Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. I can't remember the last time we sat down and talked Razors, but it's been a little while. We said we were going to sit down and talk again when our paths crossed again, and they are doing it right now. And we welcome in a special guest to this Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. I can't remember how long I've known Jeff Marek for. Only because I just can't remember things anymore.
You and me both. Yeah.
All I know is that Jeff and I got to know each other pretty darn well at Sportsnet in Canada. And
undressing and dressing next to each other.
Yes,
you should add for your audience, just for that little visual here on the Brew.
And it was Deb's lair, so to speak,
that's
right?
Deb Berman, that's right.
Deb Berman, the greatest wardrobe person ever in the business. She basically owned a small, tiny, but incredibly valued piece of real estate at Sportsnet and CBC, where people would change both in and out. So Jeff Marek, host of The Sheet and Daily Face-Off. You can catch him at 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. Joining us, and we're really going to hit more or less, folks, on draft stuff. We'll get a little bit into the NHL playoffs. Razor and I haven't sat and talked. I literally don't think we've sat and talked for 2 weeks. Have we even touched base? I mean, we've texted a little. That's about it.
Yeah, and even that was sporadic. So no, it's been
you've been back and forth to Canada in like 12. You made it in like 12 hours. I don't know how you did it in the Prius.
Yeah. Oh no, the back hurts. The go-kart was cooking. I literally covered about 2,500 miles over 8 days. 2 trips back and forth to Belleville, which
2 trips
does a number. Yeah. I was there the weekend before, and then this past week I just literally drove up Thursday, drove back Friday. So that was fun.
Well, that's I didn't.
By the way, we call it Bell Vegas here.
Of course we do.
Now.
Well, the locals do. Yeah, exactly.
This Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor is always proudly presented by our lead-in pod sponsor, Fazenda Coffee. Fazenda Coffee Roasters, the place to go. They're located in Dedham, but they'll ship pretty much everywhere. I spent the day with them, or lunch with them, last week. And what phenomenal people there. Just a chance to say hi, thank them for their great business this year. They've got everything under the sun coffee-wise that you can imagine, from dark roast to light roast. Whole bean, hey, they'll grind it for you. Check out fazendacoffee.com, and specifically for the Morning Brew blend, the Morning Brew hats. And they still have some Morning Brew Clean Canteen Travelers in there. Check them out, fazendacoffee.com/morning brew. And the other sponsor for the show, Graciano Construction, the people that will help you refresh and revitalize your space in the greater Metro West area. Check out GracianoConstruction.com or call them at 508-330-7589 to discuss what you are looking to do. They are doing some awesome, amazing projects in this area. Love dealing with Graciano Construction. Love dealing with Jeff Marek. Jeff,
hey.
You've been on the road a little bit. Let's quickly hit in. Let's start with the playoffs, if only because that's where we're at right now as we sit and record this episode, May 13th. Just back from a little bit in Washington, Carolina series, and just back from one game with Toronto, Florida. Are you surprised that Carolina is where they are?
No.
And I will say I'm not surprised that Florida, Toronto is tied at 2-2, but I'll let you take it.
Sure. You guys know this. Carolina's hard to play against, man. And we always talk about teams that are built for the playoff style hockey. I mean, the Carolina Hurricanes skate in your back pocket. They leave you no room to maneuver out there. It is a very tough team to play against. This is Rod Brind'Amour man-on-man all over the ice, which is why when plays do break down, they're usually grade A scoring chances for, well, in this case, Washington. And I'll tell you what, Billy and Razor, it's weird watching Carolina because, you watch a regular hockey game and you say to yourself, wow, there's not a lot of room to move out there. But Carolina's playing right up against you. So there is a lot of open ice that's available. The problem is you can't quite get to it. It's all based on communication on the ice and hard work. Like I'll swear, like if you're not in tip-top shape, there's no room for you with the Carolina Hurricanes. It's almost like everyone's a triathlete. Like you know what it is? Everybody is Rod Brind'Amour. Like this is a team that's totally adopted the style of how Rod Brind'Amour plays hockey. You have to be very patient. You can't force anything. And as we've seen with Carolina going back years now, they're volume shooters. And, you know, you look at that Jacob Slavin goal in game 2. That is a Carolina goal. That is just a byproduct of firing puck after puck after puck after puck at the nets. And I remember talking to one Carolina Hurricane player a few years ago, and we're talking about the nature of analytics with his team, and it's always been a big analytics squad. And he's like, look, what we do in the first period is, you know, we just throw as many shots on net to warm up our Corsi to keep management happy. Look, we just threw 20 pucks on nets. You should be happy. Our Corsi's high. It's effective. I know it's not the most entertaining brand of hockey. I've always said the Carolina Hurricanes are an acquired taste. They're not for everybody, but not surprised at how Carolina has come out, and just even though Ovechkin scored last night, even though that, you know, they Washington can score in bunches, they've really snuffed out what should be an elite level offensive attack from the Capitals. They're good. They're a good team. They're solid. They work hard. They get key saves from Freddie Anderson. As long as he keeps the hospital bracelet off, everything should be good for the Carolina Hurricanes.
They do all of those things, and all of those things are also the reason why they haven't got to the end goal. And that's where it gets curious. If they do get through Washington, they had an easy one against Jersey. Jersey was depleted, like beyond means. Where do they go in the next round? Can they continue this if they get through, assuming, you know, they hold on to a 3-1 lead? What it looks like the next round? Like, they still have 8-9 more wins, and that's what the hard part about the man-on-man and the grind that is great of a condition you're in. You know, to do that against Florida and then to do that against Dallas, let's say, it's a big ask.
Yeah, it really is. But, you know, listen, if they take care of the Washington Capitals in 5 here, that'll be 2 gentlemen sweeps in a row. And so they will have the benefit of some rest here. And because you guys know, like, if you're gonna go all the way, somewhere along the way, you need like one easy series, or you need one that's over in 4 or one that's over in 5. If you got to go like 6 or 7 every series, that shows up eventually. Like right now, you see the path for the Carolina Hurricanes. Like, whoever's coming out of this Florida-Toronto series, they're going to be mangled. That they really are. For the Carolina Hurricanes, they may be able to get out of this series without a dent or a scratch on the car at all. That to me is the big benefit here. Like, you're right, Razor. It was kind of a layup against the New Jersey Devils, really depleted squad. Against the Washington Capitals, they're outworking them and skating them into the ground. And if it's over in 5, I look at Carolina and say they're going into the conference finals, fresh as they were when they had played that first game against the New Jersey Devils. That's a major advantage at this time of year for the Carolina Hurricanes. Major advantage.
I would be surprised, but not, I guess, shocked, because anything can happen. But I would be surprised if it ended in 5, if only because the Washington Capitals have had this amazing year. Razor and I talked throughout the year, but especially late in the year, about how they had so much good stuff in the regular season. And by the way, Razor and I really know good regular seasons. We saw it 2 years ago. We understand it doesn't translate to playoffs, but I got to think they have one more push in them. I can't see them blowing the series, but I got to imagine the Caps have one more push in them. With that said, what the hell do I know? Anything can happen, come up. But let's touch quickly on that Toronto-Florida series. That it's the cliche of you're not into a series until you lose at home type of thing, and both teams have done what they needed to do so far. But with that said, I'll ask the question. I'll start with you, Jeff, then I'll go to Razor. You can answer too. Have you felt different, though, about how Florida won at home versus what Toronto did at home, or hasn't it mattered to you? Meaning they both just won at home and you don't have a different vibe check on this series right now.
In game 3, that second period that the Florida Panthers played was a lesson and a reminder to everybody. You know, I remember you were there, Blake. Remember we used to work with Marty McSorley? I remember going out to dinner once with Marty, and he told the story about how when he joined the Edmonton Oilers, Dave Semenko was there, and Marty was a young kid and he wanted to scrap every night. And Semenko was like, no, we're not going to do this every night. Calm down. And this happened like 3 or 4 games in a row. And then one day Marty came to the rink and Dave was taping up his wrists. And Marty said, like, hey, what's going on? And Dave's like, Marty, every now and then we must remind them. And tonight we're going to remind them. And I look at that second period of game 3 and I say, that's the Florida Panthers reminding not just the Maple Leafs, but everybody that they're the defending Stanley Cup champions for a reason. And then we saw that in game 4 against the Maple Leafs as well. Now, I'm not someone that believes in momentum between games in the playoffs. I just think there are too many variables, too much time, like all of it. I don't believe in momentum throughout a playoff series. Sometimes we've seen it, but by and large, I'm painting with a roller, not a brush here. I don't believe in momentum. So I still look at it as if it's not a 7-game series, it's 7 one-game series. So that's why I look at this and say, yes, to your point, both teams have held serve. Now it's best 2 out of 3. You're not in trouble until you lose at home. But I think now is where it gets weird for Toronto, because now it becomes psychological, right? And this team, remember Paul McLean talked about, this team has demons. Man, this has demons behind every door, inside of every coffee cup. Like, this team has demons. Now we'll see how mentally tough the Maple Leafs are come game 5 here, because now it becomes as much physical as it does psychological, because the Panthers just had their way with you for 2 games in Sunrise. How are you going to react? Now it's between the ears for me.
When Toronto came out in game 3, I was like, wow, this is different. This is different. I haven't, like, I thought, okay, Leafs won 2 games at home. Bob was really bad. And
really bad.
Panthers
really bad.
have lived off of giving up those random opportunities where Bob makes a save. Whether it's, the first minute of the game in game 1, the Nylander goal in game 2, in the second period, like they've lived off of that. And he was really bad. And then, so I was like, okay, Bob, they'll get back at it. And then Toronto comes out and plays the way they do in the first, and they're up 3-1 in the second period. I'm thinking, this is the game that Leafs steal this game. The Leafs find a way to win this game. You're not coming back 3-0, even if Florida does get to their game. But to your point, Jeff, the Florida Panthers get to their game at 3-1. And I agree. I don't believe in momentum between games, especially with 2 days off. It's impossible to keep momentum. But what I do believe in is great teams figuring out ways to get to their game. And they don't relinquish that. You look at the Edmonton Oilers. They bought 2 breaks at home against LA. LA should have swept them.
They did. Yeah.
They got to their game and they didn't let go. They knew they got away with those 2 games. I feel like Florida knows they got away with their 3 games, the first 3 games, getting that overtime winner. I feel like they know they got away with it, and they're not going to let off of their game. So between that and the fact that Matthews hasn't scored and he's got that demon to deal with and everything that's involved in that, it goes back to how you said that the Florida Panthers showed everybody what they are and who they are. Yeah. And I find no Eastern Conference team has been able to figure that out over the last 2 years. And Craig Berube's got a big job over these 2 days to figure that out, because I don't think Florida is going back to how they played in game 1 and 2.
The other thing about it is, and we saw this and you guys, you're right there for all of it. We kind of saw this from the Boston Bruins for a long time. And that is, they have an idea that being penalized for aggressive play is just the cost of doing business. Like, they are not fazed by suspensions. They are not fazed by penalties. They will keep playing that way because they can. Like, that's the one thing that I love about this style of hockey. And this was the Bruins too. This is how, they won the Stanley Cup in 2011. They went out there, and this is one of the things that I love about playoff hockey is, like, they went out there and said, we're the bullies. We're the bullies. Like, you skate it, everyone can skate, everybody can shoot, everyone can play, make all of that. But we have that other thing that shows up here in the playoffs, and that is, we're happy to bully you. We're not going to stop. And if we get a penalty, so be it. If we get a suspension, so be it. This is how we play unapologetically. And it reminds us that this is a game that's played by large, strong, tough, intimidating hockey players that aren't shy about being bullies. And what's your response to that? Because Florida's going to go into game 5, they're going to try to bully the Toronto Maple Leafs again. Now, one thing I will say is what has been impressive about the Maple Leafs here is that they don't seem bullied at all, right? They don't see, like, in years past, this would be a team that will have wilted by now. This is a team that will be, looking around, looking around to recess for the teacher to complain about someone that's kicking sand in their face. Like the Panthers show up, they kick sand in your face, they take their per diem and they take their 2 points and they go home. Like that's the Florida Panthers. They take their wins. But so far the Maple Leafs haven't been intimidating.
But to your point earlier about now it's mental.
Oh yeah.
Now let's wait and see if I don't disagree with what you're saying here, Jeff, about that they haven't been bullied per se. But now I'm curious to see how they handle it. And do they try and come out and be something they're not at home in game 5? If they try and do too much, because what do you do you have to stand up to a bully, right? But you got to do it in a smart way. If you play into them, so to speak, in the wrong way, if they're taking too many, and hey, Chief said it after last game too, some of the penalties, we have to be smarter, he said. You can't be taking the interferences and the plays, the penalties away. So I don't disagree that they haven't been per se bullied. I'm just wondering to see if they can get to their game, do it real well. Because if they get to their game and do it real well, to me, that's as much of a sign of confidence than anything. If they try and be something they're not, watch out. Florida starts feasting.
So play 50-50 puck and take your chances on the power play. Because I'm with you. Like cows don't make ham, right? Like you can't be who you're not.
Coming from a vegan, that's a pretty good statement. Anyone that doesn't know Jeff Marek, I don't know the last time he touched me.
What should I say? Broccoli doesn't make cauliflower.
Doesn't make tofu.
Doesn't make tempeh. There we go.
Oh man. So it's not that I don't want to touch the West. I just, you were just there. We don't have time. I want to get to it. The West has been interesting. Razor, you made a great point about Edmonton. They have found their game somehow, some way. I'll since you're the former goalie, Razor, I'll just throw this out quickly. How the hell are the Oilers doing it with the goaltenders that they have? It's all I want to know. And then we'll move after we do that, and we'll move on to the draft stuff. But how the hell are they doing it with Calvin Pickard and Stuart Skinner? And I know they did it with Skinner last year, but it was felt like literally by the skin of their teeth at times with him. No disrespect towards him. It's just the way he plays goal. It's a bit of a what I would call a roller coaster ride,
Oh no, it's a full-on adventure for those two guys, and it's going to be skin of the teeth if they, they're up 3-1 against a Vegas team that we all thought was going to dominate. So it's going to be a skin of their teeth all the way through, but they have the two best players on the planet, and we're starting to realize that that's the way the hockey world's going. Long gone are the days of J.S. Giguère carrying a mediocre team through a playoff run. You need the horses up front. You need to score goals, and Edmonton's doing that really well. Not to mention their back end too. Like no Matthias Ekholm. Yeah. Holy smokes, it's crazy.
Can I jump in on that one? Because that's a really, really good point too. Like I was one of the people that said going into this one, no Matthias Ekholm, no Oilers.
Yeah.
Like, nobody really does what Matthias Ekholm does. Like he's like the shot suppression machine. He's we always see these players that other guys in the NHL just adore. Like game knows game, and players look at Matthias Ekholm and go like, "Oh, this guy is such a delight and such a treat." Just like players who look at Marian Hossa and go like, "Oh, like the perfect player. Look at Hossa. You can't give him a bad pass. Like does everything phenomenally." I looked at Matthias Ekholm the exact same way. We have to give it up to John Klingberg here.
Yep.
Like this is not 2018 John Klingberg.
How about Paul Coffey too?
100%. Yes. Paul Coffey, what he's done with that blue line has been exceptional. And Jake Wallman has been a tremendous fit for this team. The minute they got Wallman, it seemed really like everything just settled and everybody was in their right spot. No one has to play minutes they're not comfortable with or against competition they can't hang with. Like the minute they got Wallman from San Jose, everything just started to fit. But I got to tell you, I think we were all skeptical about Klingberg coming off the hip resurfacing surgery. They sign him. He only plays a couple of games, and it's a Four Nations break, and then he comes back, and it's another lower body injury for him. I think he only ended up playing 11 games regular season for the Oilers. But now you're seeing through these playoffs, all of a sudden Klingberg's moving the puck efficiently to the forwards. Now all of a sudden that Klingberg, and again, not 2018, but a reasonable hand-drawn facsimile thereof, he's walking the line. Like there's a confidence that you're seeing with John Klingberg, and you're reminded that there's a really good defenseman there. And this isn't the one that struggled in Toronto, Minnesota, Anaheim. This is closer to that Dallas Stars, John Klingberg, that we saw. Again, different styles of players, but, to Razor's point, no Matthias Ekholm is really hard. What's made it a little bit easier here has been the reemergence of Klingberg.
So, Razor, I know your opinion. Can the Edmonton Oilers continue doing it with these two goaltenders? And we'll finish up our playoff talk with that. I'll ask you that question. Unfair to ask because I'm asking you to predict, but just from your eye.
No, they did it last year. So I'm with this group for whatever reason. It works for this group. So no, I'm definitely not putting them against them taking Vegas out at this point now. And I think they're going to go up against the Dallas team. That's going to be formidable against anybody, let alone, but this is the way the Oilers are rolling. They did it last year. I was completely against them not getting a third guy come the deadline. But at this point, they're kind of proving me wrong with 7 wins at this point.
Can I add something real quick, Billy? I know we want to move on. The Oilers of all teams remaining in the playoffs are the only squad that can score their way out of problems. To the point about Draisaitl and McDavid, and all of a sudden, like with Kane coming
Connor
back
Brown.
here and Perry, Connor Brown. How about Corey Perry?
Yeah.
Corey Perry's
and their game. Sorry, Jeff, to echo that, their game is better built when they're down 2-0. Like they play better when they give up goals. A 2-0 game doesn't do them any good. It's just mentally and like the way they play. They don't want the game to go that way.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point by you.
Well, another example of why I'm a pretty crappy host, because I say I'm not going to do one thing, and then yet I go then to that direction it goes. And so I'm glad we hit on it because a lot of good stuff. But this is where, as I always say to Razor, it's too bad, partner, you're stuck with me as a host because I don't really know what the hell I'm doing. But anyways, I did.
You can't choose your parents and you can't choose your host.
Exactly. Exactly. So, all right, that wraps up our playoff talk. And not this is the only reason why we wanted Jeffy on the show but he knows the top guys in the draft a lot more than Razor and I do. From his perspective, it's always been one of your things, Jeff, getting involved in the NHL draft, but also living up there. You get to see them more regularly. You a lot of times, especially in the OHL. So for the first time in forever, the Boston Bruins are drafting really high for them. We're talking, and obviously a number 7 pick this year.
Yep.
Any Bruins fan knows. Unfortunately for them, the draft lottery couldn't have gone any more disappointing given what happened with Utah and the Islanders, both elevating up and the Bruins staying at 7. With that said, we're going to focus on guys that we believe will realistically be there between 4 or 5 guys at that number 7 pick. It's not that I don't think that Matthew Schaefer, who sounds like an amazing defenseman, which I can't believe. Would you both agree? Can't believe that the Islanders wouldn't take, right? Do we both agree on that the Islanders will take him?
That's a layup.
If they don't,
that's it. To me, there's you always look at tiers in the draft. There's Matthew Schaefer, and then after that, there's a drop off, and then there's another tier of players, and then there's. But Schaefer has, even with the shoulder injury this year, distinguished himself as the top guy in the draft.
Schaefer's number 1. Then you got about 3 guys in the middle. Michael Misa, Anton Frundell, and James Hagans. Do we all agree? I'll start with you, Jeff, that those guys, Misa, the high-flying, high-octane offensive player in the OHL for Saginaw, Frundell, solid center. When I mean solid, I'm talking physically, 6'1", 200, playing in Sweden. And then James Hagan, a skilled center playing for Boston College, who only had a point per game against some older players. But, at times – at times you say, okay, you want to see a little more, and then you're like, wait a second, he is playing against older guys. So I'll cut him slack right there. Razor, we both saw him a fair amount this year. But do we all agree that those 3 guys will be gone before the Bruins, assuming they stay at 7, will draft there?
I think those guys will be gone. I would also assume that Porter Martone from Brampton will be gone as well. Large body. Skating has always been a little bit of a question there, but big, strong, physical, scoring forward. I would put Porter Martone in that. Again, there's always guys that fall, but still, if we're just looking at it right here, we are in May, I would throw Porter Martone into that conversation too.
Could because of a guy like Martone, could a Haggins drop further than the other guys? If anyone's going to drop in that group, could he fall?
I'm gonna tell you one thing. Haggins is not getting past Nashville.
Got it.
There is 0 chance that James Hagen's, like, we all know what the Nashville Predators have been looking for the longest time. They want offensive production in the middle of the ice, and they haven't been able to find it. They almost did a deal with the San Jose Sharks at the Nashville Draft a couple of years ago to try to grab Will Smith. And that ended up not
that's
going
James
anywhere.
Hagens. He's Will Smith.
And that's James Hagens. Like Hagens, play. It's funny too, because I remember being there and watching the Nashville table when the Rangers took Gabriel Perreault, because they really, really wanted Perreault. And now they ended up with a good player in Tanner Molenbeek, but I just remember that one because they the whole Nashville table's like, damn, that was our guy. There is no way that James Hagens gets past Nashville at 5. Not going to happen. I can't see it. Given what they want, no way.
Okay, so Schaefer, Misa, Frondell, Hagens, Porter, Martone, off the board. So now we're at the top 5 picks that are all taken.
Yeah.
There's still a gaggle, a posse, whatever term you want to use, a load of some good centers. 3 guys in particular stand out. So the Boston Bruins, the assumption is, and I think fairly so, I know that Don Sweeney and Razor, maybe I'm not phrasing this the right way, basically say he's going to take the best available hockey player at that point, right? But
smart.
Razor, we agree, right? Center, dearth. There's a need for a center.
It won't be a D-man.
It will not be.
If the best player available has an R or an L beside their position, that could still happen if they see a way to put him at center ice, and or he's just that much better than in their boards. But it's not going to be a D, man. That is 1,000,000% for sure.
The only way they would have taken the D, Michael Schaefer, is if they jumped to the number 1, and even there, maybe there was some question about that. I'm playing hypothetical. If they had won the draft lottery, I still would have taken Schaefer. If there's no good trade, I would take the best player if he's going to help be a cornerstone for your team, and then you figured the other stuff out. Personally, I would have done that.
Can I tell a quick story about that to reinforce your point?
Yeah.
At the Alexander Daig draft, so Ottawa was selecting 1, San Jose was selecting 2. Now, San Jose ended up making a trade with Brian Burke, so with the Hartford Whalers, so they flipped picks. And because Berkey really wanted Chris Pronger, obviously, and Pronger was, and the story is that Pronger was being interviewed by the San Jose Sharks, who said to Pronger, right at that point they were picking 2. He said, "Yeah, you know what? We're not gonna take you. If we're at this pick, we're gonna take somebody else that fills a need. We don't need." Here's the money quote: "We don't need another big defenseman. We already have Mike Rathje and Marcus Ragnarsson." And instead, they passed over one of the best defensemen ever because they already had that position filled. And that's why, Billy, to your point, I always say it doesn't matter what you have. Take the best player. And whenever I hear that, I always want to mention the Chris Pronger. So he ended up going to Hartford anyhow, but like they were going to pass over Chris Pronger because they had Rathje and Ragnarsson.
Right. But to your point,
they probably would have won in 97, 98, 99.
If Matthew Schaefer is by far that tier 1 player,
he is.
There's not even a question, because whether he's ready to play in the league this year or let's say 2 years from now, you're going to eventually need a top 4. And if he's going to be a part of that top 4 and then eventually top 1, you take him. I digress again. So let's focus on the 3 guys then that we think are going to be there in no particular order. Caleb, and I'll let you say it French.
Desnoyers.
Yes.
Caleb Desnoyers.
I would have called him Desnoyers. I wouldn't have said the S. I know how to say it well enough, but Desnoyers, as you said, Moncton Wildcats. Jake O'Brien, Brantford from the OHL. And then the darling of the draft in the last month, 3 weeks, Brady Martin from Sault Ste. Marie. Those are your 3 players, all listed as centers first. However, where it is maybe 2 of the 3 can also toggle, to use a Bruce Cassidy word, to the right side, to the wing. All right. Who's the best of those 3 in your eyes right now? Is there a best of those 3? Because I don't see them. I don't know them.
So, boy, this is like Sophie's Choice. I love them all. I love my children the same, Billy. They're different players. They're different players. And you're right about Brady Martin. His performance at the most recent U18 in Texas really turned heads. Now, what makes Brady Martin so attractive is he still has an incredible upside. Let me give you the Brady Martin story here. So he grew up on a farm.
Yep.
Family farm in Elmira. And I'll tell you another quick story. I think
Dan Snyder's hometown, by the way. Dan Snyder.
Yes.
And I sadly have been to Elmira for Dan's funeral. It was made and just to be there and to see and meet the people, by the way. And you can see the work ethic there. Yeah.
And that is Brady Martin. Now, I first saw Brady Martin. Sorry, I'm going to be that guy. When he played at Waterloo, at the OHL Cup, where he pumped the Marlies for 4 and took this Waterloo team a lot farther than a lot of other people gave them a chance to go, and then ends up getting drafted by the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. So again, he grows up a farm boy, so he has farm boy strength. He hasn't had like strength and conditioning coaches his whole life. He hasn't had skill trainers his whole life. Like he shows up at Sault Ste. Marie camp and he's like smashing all these physical fitness records, and he's never had like a workout program. His is the old school farm boy strength. And
it's that Toronto bias you guys have for the Marlies and the Don Mills Flyers, not giving any love to the small town kids that like beating those
We're
kids
winding Razor up and letting him go.
Better. You know better.
Listen, I got a kid in the GTHL who plays for the Reps. I know the bias. I understand. Don't worry. I get it, Razor.
Yeah.
He's grown up, and outside of like shooting pucks in the backyard, he hasn't, outside of some of the skill work that he's been able to do through the OHL, he hasn't had like a full life of having, dedicated, skills trainers and fitness trainers and mental, he is at his core a farm boy, and he's got farm boy strength. I remember, hearing the stories of when he went to Matt Nichols' gym, and Matt Nichols, like, this kid's incredible. Like, the kid's phenomenal, and he's never been part of like
a movie.
Right? Yeah, right? Yeah, it's like, where does this guy come from? This kid's marvelous. So I would look at Brady Martin and say, as much as you look at him now and he's got skill, he's not huge, he's not massive, but he's like farm boy strong. And you see that when he plays in the OHL, and you saw that at the U18s as well. And anytime I talk to anyone around Brady Martin, it's always like, wait till a team gets their hands on him and gets him into a pro style program. Because guys still got so much more room to grow and to improve. Now, Caleb Desnoyers, okay, don't go too far with this comparison. I see some Bergeron in there. And I think a lot of us see some Bergeron in there as well. I wonder if what Boston ends up doing is predicated on where the Flyers go with their pick. Because I look at Brady Martin, for example, and I go like, I could see that guy in orange. I could also see that guy in black and gold. Mm-hmm. Like these two teams are so fascinating in where they pick, because you can see specifically Brady Martin playing for both these squads. Desnoyers plays with on Gardner McDougall's team, one of the winningest coaches, ever in Canadian, either, U Sports, won a Memorial Cup with St. John. Like he's a winner. And he's, for my money, the Moncton Wildcats are the best team in the CHL. They should win the Memorial Cup. They're already going through. And Jake O'Brien's fascinating too with the Bulldogs. Almost had 100 points this season. Mm-hmm. Really strong center, moves around well. He's kind of been a riser, not unlike Brady Martin has been throughout the season. Desnoyers has kind of always been there because everyone's loved the hockey sense and how he plays. And again, there is some Bergeron in there with Caleb Desnoyers, but I think you've isolated the three. Now, if you want to throw a wild card in there, because when I watch this guy play, and again, he's a defenseman, so you're going to say like, okay, pump the brakes. Kashan Aitchison, who plays with the Barrie Colts, big, strong, can produce offensively. This guy levels players. Thunderous body checks. Here's another old school guy, coached by Marty Williamson, who's helped graduate a lot of players into the NHL. He brings a physical element to your back end that every team craves. Like, I look at a guy like Brady Martin, and I look at Kashan Aitchison, and I say to myself, we're now in the era where, let's be on the same page here. I look around at all these games, whether it's junior hockey games or minor/youth hockey or NHL, and I always say, like, where'd the bad skaters go? Where did the bad skaters go? Like, they're gone. Everybody can skate, everybody can shoot, everybody can play and make. What else can you give me? And everyone's looking for now, it's weird the way the pendulum is swung back. Everyone's looking for someone that can play physically. Give me that guy that can bring some terror to your team. Because Sean Aitchison brings that on the blue line. Brady Martin brings that up front. And if you're the Boston Bruins, man, that's really, really tempting. Now, Aitchison might be a little bit of a leap at 7, but if he's your guy and that's what you want, Aitchison's going to play for your team. He's going to hammer guys for 10 years. But I think you've identified the right 3. And if looking down the middle, Desnoyers, Martin, O'Brien, those are the 3. Those are the 3.
Any issues with Desnoyers in the Quebec League just being a little bit of a different type of league compared to the O, and evaluating the guys out west for that matter?
Yeah, I know what you're getting at. Like for the longest time, the stereotype has always been in the Quebec League that nobody plays defense and every game is 12-8, and that it's just like it's pond hockey. Just go play, last goal wins. Q's done really well, like over the last 10 years specifically, maybe 15 years. Well, let me put it this way. Because there's so much skill overlap and all these guys play together and train together and all these, U17, U18 programs, the distinction between the Western League, which used to be just like, that's where you get your bruisers, and the Quebec League is where you get your goal scorers, and the Ontario Hockey League is where you get your like superstars. And it's kind of a combination of both of those leagues. Those distinctions, have kind of melted away, and now players are more similar than they are different. Like I look at a lot of guys, and you can say, this guy could probably play in any league. And if anything, to that distinction, for the longest time, I know I'm going to piss people off in the Western League saying this because they're going to go, well, what about Joe Sakic? What about Gordie Howe? What about Carey Price? The Western Hockey League, unlike the OHL and the Quebec League, never produced superstars, right? Like there were always like really good players that came out of the West, but there wasn't a Gretzky.
The only one I can. You're right.
Someone's going to yell you about Jerome McGinley too, by the way.
And Jerome McGinley, Cam Loops as well. That's another.
Now, and Medano was there, but he's a Detroit kid.
So he's a Livonia kid that went and played in Prince Albert.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he ended up playing in PA.
Yeah.
But like by and large, when you look at like superstars that have been produced, but now that is all changing.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the guy in Chicago, right? Look at the guy at San Jose. Oh, he didn't play in the West. But look at San Jose. Macklin Celebrini. You look at Gavin McKenna, whose scoring record just finished up at 54 games, and then Maddox Schultz, who just got picked first overall in the Western Hockey League Bantam Draft, who's just shattering records and playing as a 14-year-old in U18 and dominating like and a lot of it is because of the rise of the academy model.
Yeah, I was just going to say
in the West, like that's exactly what it is. But nonetheless, like they've done a great job turning their league into what the Ontario Hockey League has always been, this elite level hothouse for elite level players. So the distinction's kind of blurred right now.
Okay.
And I think it's probably going to stay that way, but I do know what you're getting at. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's for our viewers. Like it's there is that it's always been there, I guess. So it's good for them to kind of understand major junior. They don't get a lot of it. So I'm just trying to distinguish those. So that was perfect.
If you look at that Canada USA that 2-game challenge series that we saw in London and Oshawa, Desnoyers was the best player.
Okay.
Like full stop, flat out, Desnoyers, the best player.
Got it.
John Tortorella made the saying "safe as death" very famous. I don't know if he's the only one who's ever said that, but in the NHL, he's the one.
Collins' book.
Yeah,
that's where he got it from.
Okay, well, he made it famous in the NHL.
True.
I remember back in 2004. All right, when Tampa was not cruising, but working their way to a cup. So I don't know if this is a good way to approach it, but Razor, I hope I can speak for you here on this one. I think both Razor and I would agree that the Bruins can't miss on this pick. Meaning, given the demise of the team, the situation this year, the decisions that they've made, and being as high as they are in the draft, and given the uncomfortable nature with how the season ended, they not afford. Razor, are you going to agree that they can't afford to miss on this pick? I would, meaning, so who's the safest of these guys? Not that I know, is it more important, guys, that the Bruins have somebody that guarantee can play, or they got to hit a home run here type of thing. You know, are we good with a double, maybe a triple, or does it have to be a home run? So I guess I'll start with you, Jeffy. Who's the pick? And I know you love them all. I get it. I understand that. But is there one guy that you feel?
I know what you're getting. I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Caleb Desnoyers.
If he's there, you got to take him.
He does. But here's so. I know what you're getting at. I understand. Like this, there's a lot of pressure on the Boston Bruins to nail this pick. And the safest one out of all of them, and maybe the right one out of all of them, is going to end up being Caleb Desnoyers. I can recall, and this would have been the Philadelphia draft, the Aaron Ekblad draft. This is when Brendan Shanahan took over the Toronto Maple Leafs, and his point to the scouts was, "We've drafted safe for too long, and safe gets you to the middle, right? A lot of scouts were like, hey, my guy made it to the NHL. Okay, well, it's one thing to get guys into the NHL. You want like impact players."
Yep.
Getting there to the NHL. And that was the year that the Toronto Maple Leafs selected William Nylander. And because Shanahan told him, like, I want you guys to swing for the fences here. Enough of this safe stuff. I want fences. You think this guy's going to be a superstar? Sell me on it. And I won't back off. Now, I know, Maple Leafs and Boston Bruins might be in different positions at that point when that draft rolled through Philadelphia. But I agree with Tortorella and his safe as death mantra that it's one thing to be safe, and that's good, but do you want to get on base, or do you want to hit one where the outfielder doesn't even turn to look at it leave the stadium?
So after Desnoyers, Razor, I'll ask you, I mean, let's assume that he's gone. I mean, if only do you
Brady
think
Martin.
Brady Interesting. Martin. Razor, what would you feel, Martin. Razor, for this type of player the Bruins need?
Well, I hear, so I guess I'll preface a little bit with just kind of how I look at the draft. And I mean, Billy, this is hard. And Jeff, you can probably elaborate better than for me on this, but I've gone through, I've watched every NHL draft, or at least studied the ones from 93 to 2001 when I was in the middle of that, and I was a big part of it. And I know every single person that got drafted in every single one of those drafts in the first round. I know all of those players. I knew the ones that were going to make it. I knew the ones that weren't. I knew the ones that were bad picks. I knew the ones that were good picks. And it's really important for everyone to know how hard it is, even at 7, how hard it is to get this and nail this. And to that point, I listened to you explain Brady Martin. That makes sense to me. That's kind of the guys I like to look at, to be able to mold. And it comes down to development and what the team does and where they put those kind of players. I'm not a big guy who's, and Jeff Gordon said this, and Jeff is the guy who drafted me, and I know I was a perfect example of this, is that you don't draft guys that have beards. You don't draft guys with beards. I'm a big don't draft guys with beards kind of person. Yeah. Jeff talked about it. Patrice Bergeron did not have a beard when he drafted him.
He had frosted tips, though, didn't he? He had frosted tips.
They all did that.
and so,
go look at that
I guess
junior team. They all had the tips, Billy.
Yeah, of course. There'll be a few guys in this draft too. The Brady Martin kind of story, resonates with me. Those are the kind of guys that I find even at 7. So, Jeff, just lean into that maybe a little bit more and explain that more.
So I think what you're trying to say is you don't want the guys that have already peaked, right? Yeah. I think that's what you're getting at here. Like, you don't want the guys.
They're stronger than their opponent.
Which also goes to the safe pick. Yeah. That's the safe pick for these guys, right? Because they're the ones that are going to be good right away rather than in 18 months or 2 years.
Yeah. So let's not lose sight of one thing. And Razor, I'm sure you saw plenty of guys like this, and we could be here for a couple hours as you rattle off the names. Drafting is only one piece. Then you just mentioned development a second ago. That is as important, if not more important. It's one thing to acquire the player, and then what are you going to do with this lump of clay? Like, just because you draft the guy doesn't mean automatically, like magically, he's going to have like a magic wand waved over him and boom, you're going to be an NHLer in a couple of years. Maybe you'll play one more year in junior, 1 year in Providence, and then bam, you're an NHL, you're ready to go. It's not that simple. And everybody's different. Everybody needs different things, and everyone needs different environments and different competitions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm a big believer in it's not just getting the guy. Razor, how many times did you see a guy get drafted and you said to yourself, I don't know how this didn't work out? And I always pointed the development piece. Again, like I know we all want to believe in magic. Trust me, I do too. All of a sudden, you got the guy and he's going to be great. And you think just because you drafted him that, oh, everything's done. We got the guy, nothing else. The development piece is so important. And even not just, part of the development too is where that player is going to play. We've heard, and I've heard, tons of stories of the NHL, of various NHL teams. We're drafting this kid from CHL town X, but we really want him to play over here with this coach so he can learn the defensive side of the game. So he can learn the physical side of the game. So he can learn something. You want him to have a different experience and a different learning. This coach isn't going to be right for this player. We'd rather he was somewhere else with a different coach. And I think that's part of the development piece as well. And that's the part that a lot of us don't see. We just think they get drafted and then suddenly they appear. And they're playing first line with the Boston Bruins and everything is great. There's a whole lot that goes on between walking up to get the hat and the jersey to debuting with the NHL team. That part is crucial, right? And listen, not to rehash 15 all over again too, but and you guys were talking about in the last pod about how 2015 draft came up again. You look at those three players that they drafted. I looked at that, watching that draft, and I'm saying they want to get faster. Zach Senyshyn. They want someone else on the back end. Here's Jacob Zaboral, who's playing on one of the best blue lines, playing with Thomas Chabot, one of the best. That was one of the best pairs, maybe the best pair in the CHL. And Jake DeBrusk, we want goal scoring. Here's a guy that snaps in 50 for Swift Current. It all made sense, but it's not just the drafting. It's a whole lot that comes after that.
So Jeff, to that point, do you think that the Boston Bruins are in a much better position to develop with where the organization is now compared to where they were in 15, for example, or go all the way back to 11 and 12 when they were winning and they didn't have a lot of spots to put guys? Are they in a better position to develop a 7th overall pick than they were prior to or in 15?
It depends how patient they are. Okay, that's the big, let me be upfront about this. I don't think anybody from this draft is going into the NHL next year. I can't see one player that I look at and I say, this guy is going into the National Hockey League, and that includes Matthew Schaefer, who's going to go 1st overall. I think that it's still one more year before they turn pro. So I know that if you're the Boston Bruins, I know it's get back there as quickly as possible. Swayman's there. Look at our blue line led by McAvoy and Lindholm and David Pastrnak. We still have high end players at these key positions. We can turn this around quickly. I don't know anyone that's ever been harmed by spending one more year in junior hockey or one more year in the American Hockey League, but I can point to a whole lot of guys that were ruined by going too fast. Now, I got to give it up to Connor McMichael of the Washington Capitals, who, and a lot of it was because of injuries, was rushed to the NHL. And you guys remember what Connor, what are they doing with McMichael? Well, they got all these injuries, COVID, et cetera. We got it. We need bodies. We need guys that can play. And a lot of guys would have been ruined by that, absolutely ruined. Too much, too fast, overwhelmed, drink out of a fire hose, all of it, it's too much. And it wrecks the player. Good on Connor McMichael for being able to correct that ship. And mind you, he's getting had some great coaching and development in Hershey. But the key to this pick, considering this guy is not going into the NHL no matter who it is, whether it's O'Brien, Desnoyers, Martin, the three that we're focusing on, how patient can they be? Or because you're not getting someone who's walking into the NHL. I don't think anybody's walking the NHL from this draft. Not next year.
For the record, my uneducated opinion would be as well, assuming that Desnoyers is gone, I would lean towards Brady Martin as well. Razor, I agree with you about it feels right. Again, it sounds right. It's not that I don't think Jake O'Brien, again, have never seen him play, so it's probably very unfair to say this, but given the scouting reports,
Good player.
high skill, great motor, not very physical, they say.
Nope.
And that, which doesn't make wrong. I'm just saying the package of what Brady Martin is and appears to be able to become. I would agree with that as well. But again, mine is,
still a lot of room to develop with him too. Again, like this guy, you're just scratching the surface of how good this kid can be.
It will be interesting to see where the Bruins go, to say the least.
Oh, you know what?
What?
One more thing on Brady Martin.
Yeah.
When he first went to Sault Ste. Marie, they were trying to figure out a way to bring his cow there.
His cow.
Yes, he was trying to find a billet family so he could bring his favorite cow from Elmira.
Well, because during
that league's changed.
We know a lot of guys will bring mementos from home. Tried to bring a cow. Give me a billet family can house a cow.
During COVID,
it seems a good place for that. I'm sure they
isn't it? I was going to say, isn't there land? I mean, I know on the Michigan,
a lot of rock. That's the problem. There's not enough soil up there for cows.
During COVID, I know that his family encouraged the boys there to get them. They got their own cattle to learn how to raise them themselves, and so they became. Not just cattle farmers, but they personalized it as well. So interesting, fun, and unique. I'd bring my dog. I would try to bring Cooper, and I think Mila Razor would get Mila going up there.
Here's the thing you got to understand about Mark. Every chance he gets, he goes back to the farm to work. Like, he adores everything about it. And again, like at the end of wherever hockey ends up taking him, he's going back to the farm. Well, he has like that. That's
very Sutter-like.
Exactly. This is Elmira is going to be hockey's new Viking Alberta.
Yes.
Right. With this legendary farm for Brady Martin. But that's like how he's wired. Get up in the morning and get to work. Like, if you're any scout, if you're any manager, like, the kid's wired to get up and work.
Yeah.
Like, this is what he craves. This is his life. Nothing changes. Like, this is what he wants. I get up and I work. I'm Brady Martin.
I love it. Real quick, and then we're going to wrap up this morning brew with Jeffy and Razor with special guest Jeffy Marek. You mentioned great coaching for McMichael, and I think, did he have Todd Nelson there?
He would have had Todd.
He must have, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I bring up Todd Nelson is because maybe I don't know. Let's quickly touch on this, Razor and Jeff, Bruins coaching search, because we haven't even like 2 minutes on it, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, he had Todd.
So there's Todd Nelson, his name's been out there. I've known Todd for a long time too. I think he's a hell of a coach. There's another guy, though, an assistant out there that I know, Jeff, you think the Bruins could be highly into. I'll let you say his name. And where do we think we're at?
There's a few that I wonder about with the Boston Bruins. Listen, by the way, Todd Nelson just engineered a great comeback for the Hershey Bears over the Lehigh Valley Phantoms to oust them. Their backs were against the wall, all the cliches, and now all of a sudden, once again, Todd Nelson, instead of interviewing for jobs, is coaching a team through the American Hockey League, and they're in the finals for the Atlantic there. Todd Nelson, I'm so surprised that he's not back in the NHL right now. There is clearly interest. People are interested. The problem with Todd is, and you can always do Zooms on off days, when the coaching conversations happen, poor Todd is just winning hockey games. Like, he's just going deep and deep and deep into the season. I do wonder about Mitch Love, the assistant coach for the Washington Capitals. Spencer Carberry is going to win the Jack Adams this year. He's the new hotness, but the next hotness in the NHL, a lot of people believe, is a 2-time AHL coach of the year in Mitch Love. And the other guy who's really interesting, and he was a finalist for the San Jose Sharks job that went to Ryan Warsofsky, and that is, it's a name that's not strange to the Boston Bruins or their fans at all, Marco Sturm. Marco Sturm's been highly thought of for a long time in and around NHL circles, and we all think it's only a matter of time before he lands somewhere. He's the head coach of the Ontario Reign, the AHL affiliate for the Los Angeles Kings. I don't think that Jim Hiller's in trouble as we're all waiting for Ken Holland to enter the equation here. There is a background and a past between Holland and Hiller. And I don't think that Holland would walk in and want to knock, all the chess pieces off the board. So you might think that, if the new GM was going to come in, there would be an opportunity for Marco Sturm to bump himself up. I'm told there's interest in Vancouver, there's interest in Boston, and there's interest in Seattle for Marco Sturm. There may be others, and if there are, though, I don't know who those teams are. But Marco Sturm could be a name you start to hear a lot of. And Pierre Maguire and I were talking about him the other day on my pod, and he brought up the Olympics and how Marco Sturm coaching Germany was amongst the elite, and if there weren't for a couple of gaffes, and if Kaprizov wasn't Kaprizov, that maybe Germany wins the gold. But he said, like, Marco Sturm is so well thought of. Everyone's looking at him like he's going to be a future coach in the NHL, much like Mitch Love is, assistant coach with the Washington Capitals. But just for your listeners and viewers, like, don't be surprised if you start to hear Marco Sturm's name a lot more around coaching circles.
Razor, it seems to me like those guys will be highly investigated by the Bruins. It just feels like
100%.
It just feels like it's that type of guy for this team as we see a little transition. Would you agree, partner?
Yeah, it feels that way. I think Tocchet still feels like he's in the mix.
He's there too. Yeah.
Of course, Philly just seems very obvious, but I got to imagine Bruins are kicking their tires on that because Tocchet would fit too. Yeah, he would. You get Rick Tocchet, the narrative changes very quickly with this past season. The last year's goes away right away with Rick Tocchet. You get a guy who hasn't done it before, it lingers a little bit. So two different ways of looking at it, but Sturmy would fit the culture narrative very well because he knows and he's been here and gets it. He's not gonna be surprised by the way the Bruins do things, and the Bruins aren't gonna be surprised by the way he does things. And I think the Bruins like that.
Do you think Tocchet might just say, you know what, after the season that I just had in Vancouver, I'm gonna go peace out on TNT for a year?
I could. Why not? Why not? Like, he's gonna if he wants back in, he'll get back in. He's young enough to take a year off. He'll be paid well. You don't look into anybody's pocket and you don't know, but in theory, I would imagine, even though it would be less than he would make as head coach, he should be just fine.
The only pushback I have on that is that the Philly job and the Bruins job doesn't come up in your cycle often. Yep. And those are two places that talk
Good
fits.
Point.
He will be a legend. He's that kind of city, that place. If he doesn't take these two jobs, the chances of that being available the next time he's up is not there.
And to your point as well, Razor, to add to that great point is that there's more leverage this year because of all the opportunity. And so maybe it's not even just about money, but it doesn't hurt to make more. But the point is he has leverage to ask for different things. And so given the situation as well.
Okay, you know what it's like, Billy? It's not about money, it's about respect. And you know how I judge respect?
My money.
Money.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you have any respect then for me right now, given what I have or don't have, but I've got a lot of respect for you and obviously for Razor and for our guy RC behind the scenes. Jeff Marek, host of The Sheet. Thank you. But great to see you.
Yeah.
We had a lot of great times. I think we go back to about 2000 well, boy, I was going to NHL Network in 2009, 10, but I think right after that, when we started working together, like 13, 14. So it's always been a lot of fun, and appreciate you taking an hour with us here doing this because Razor and I wanted to get somebody who knew a lot more about the potential opportunities for Bruins picks than we get to see. So you're one of those guys to do it, and we love it, and we love having you on. Thanks for spending the time with us. Maybe later in the playoffs, if Razor and I both find time to sit down and chat again, we'll have you on if we can figure it out.
Would love it. Thanks for having me. I can't believe that was an hour that just flew by. It's hanging out with a couple of buddies. So you guys have always been very kind, very generous with me and whatever I've been involved in. So if this is my one tiny little way of saying thank you, then consider it a thank you. It was the pleasure was all mine.
A lot of fun. Razor, great to catch up with you too. And again, Ryan, RC, thanks for putting everything together for us, bud. That's going to wrap up this morning brew with Jaffe and Razor. Thank you to Fazenda Coffee, our lead in-pod sponsor, and Graciano Construction. Make sure to check out both of those. We appreciate all that they do. Folks, Razor and I will sit down at some point again, third, fourth round. We'll see when we can get back at it again. But for now, that wraps up this morning brew with Jaffe and Razor. Everybody, enjoy your spring. It's finally turning into spring in this neck of the woods. And, for the love of hockey, enjoy your coffee.